The zeros of a polynomial are often also called the roots of the polynomial. If the roots are real numbers, they are also considered the x-intercepts. In order to determine the zeros or roots of a polynomial, you first need to set y equal to 0. So in this equation that we're given, we're going to set y equal to 0. So I'm going to substitute 0 in for y. The rest of the equation is going to stay the same. Now when we're multiplying things together and it equals 0, we know that at least one of the factors has to be equal to 0. Because in order to multiply something, for example a, by some number and have it equal 0, we know that that number has to be 0. Because the only way to multiply and get 0 is if one of the factors is 0. So we're going to take the equation that we're given, this 0 equals negative 0.1x times x minus 1 times x squared plus 2x minus 8, and we're going to find the zeros. In order to find the zeros, we have to take each of the factors and set them equal to 0. This is called the zero product property. The zero product property for this problem would make it so that each of the products, for example, the negative 0.1x, the x minus 1, and the x squared plus 2x minus 8, each equal to 0. So we're actually going to end up with 3 little equations. So we can say that 0 equals negative 0.1x. We can also say that 0 equals x minus 1. And we can say that 0 equals x squared plus 2x minus 8. Now 2 of these are going to be fairly easy to solve because we can just use our basic solving equation skills in order to solve them. For example, the first one is just connected with multiplication, so we're going to undo it with division. So we'll divide both sides of the equation by negative 0.1. And that will give us just 0 on the left-hand side, because 0 divided by any non-zero number is equal to 0. So we have 0 equals x, and that's one of our zeros. The second equation, similar, we're just going to add 1 to both sides, and that'll give us that x is equal to 1. Now this third equation is going to be a little bit more challenging because it's not easy to solve. We don't have a single term with x in it, we have 2 terms with x in it. So we have 2 options. We can either write the equation in vertex form, or we can write the equation in factored form. Now I'm going to try to get it in factored form first because it's a little bit easier than using vertex form. So I'm going to use my trusty area model to help me factor this. Now when we're factoring using an area model, we know that the upper left-hand corner is going to be our first term, or x squared. And we know the bottom right-hand corner is going to be our third term, or in this case, the negative 8. In order to multiply and make x squared, I'm going to use x and x. Now I need to find 2 values that multiply to make negative 8. Different options for multiplying to make negative 8 include 4 times negative 2, negative 4 times 2, 1 times negative 8, and negative 1 times 8. So we can try each of those. Now be careful, don't just rely on the shortcut where you multiply to make negative 8 and add to make the middle term. In this case, the middle term is 2x. The reason why we want to be careful about using that shortcut is because it doesn't always work. Whenever we have a coefficient out in front of the x squared, we can't use that shortcut. So let's go through and check and see which of these options is going to give us the correct middle term, which in this case is 2x. So if I try 4 up on the top and negative 2 on the right, completing the area model, I'm going to try, here would be 4x, and in the bottom left corner, negative 2 times x would be negative 2x. Now when I check and add those two together, I do in fact get that negative 2x plus 4x is equal to 2x. And that's what we wanted up here in the original equation. So I do have the correct factored form. So now I can write the equation as 0 equals x plus 4 from the top. We put a plus because it's a positive 4. And along the side, x minus 2. And just like we did before with the zero product property, I can now make two smaller equations using the two factors that I just found. So I can say 0 equals x plus 4 and 0 equals x minus 2. Now you don't need the parentheses there. You can put them in, you can leave them out. Now solving that equation, we're just going to subtract 4. And so I get that x is equal to negative 4. And on the other equation, we're going to add 2. And so I get that x is equal to 2. So now I have all of my zeros, or roots, or in this case, since they're all real numbers, in other words, I didn't have to take the square root of a negative to solve it, they can also be considered the x-intercepts. So my solutions, or zeros, of this equation are x equals 0, 1, negative 4, and 2. So in this case, we have 4 zeros for this equation.